Hey everybody, this is Talking of Carl back again for a to wrap up the last two seasons of Rebels, Star Wars Rebels. I'm currently going over season 3. And yeah, and for all those who wish me a happy birthday yesterday, thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated. Um I just wrapped up, like I said, Rebels. So I gotta say, the last two seasons were definitely a bit of a step up from the first two seasons. And I think that because this show, I'm pretty sure was aired on Disney XD, a long time ago, and Clone Wars was aired on Cartoon Network slash Toonami, and I think that's where the crux of the quality comes into play because I think Cartoon Network and Toonami had a little bit more leeway with, not that it was like overly graphic, but just certain writing and storytelling. It was, you know, you know, it 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 ride the edge a bit as far as how like clones getting killed. Now that you see any kind of blood or gore or anything like that, but it's like if somebody's getting cut in half or like decapitated, it's somewhat is being seen. Not that it needs to be doing that to show how grown up it is, but it's just that you know, Rebels, at least like early on, Rebels seems like, oh, this has got to be a kid show. Not that it's kiddie, like Steven Universe. Well, some people might think Steven Universe ain't kiddie, but you know what I mean. It's just like Gumball, not on that same level, but it's like, oh, this is like kid oriented, so we can't like, have any too over the top kind of stuff. But I think it was somewhat of a detriment because I think I like season 3 and 4 a little bit better, but I think 4 is my favorite because they did what I mentioned in my last review of season 2, that they should do the model of what Clone Wars did as far as like condensing them into, you know, 2 or 3 arcs for certain characters. It could just condense the story, like, and they're just like, because I think like, yeah, this season and season 1, they just like had like 22 episodes, and I don't think, just like with the Iron Fist TV show, because they figure like, oh, we have like an order to meet. They give us 22 episodes, and 22 episodes is fine if you got something meaningful, like a story to tell in it. Like I said, or make them in like the arcs, like Clone Wars. Clone Wars had a few seasons that had 22 episodes as well, but they still managed like, okay, this section is dedicated to Anakin. This section is for Ahsoka. This section is for Captain Rex and the clones. This section is for Padme, and like that. It took them to the fourth season to do that, and I think it's for their uh, betterment. But this season 3, uh, here and there you see like people recruiting. They're pretty much recruiting the Rebel Alliance, like bits and pieces of people for the Rebel Alliance. You see Mothma, Hondo. Like I think like I didn't mention in like my previous reviews. Like you see certain people they see either in the Clone Wars or the films. You get to see like Mothma, Hondo makes return. The pirate Hondo, uh, Lando Calrissian. I didn't even bring him up in my previous reviews, but he didn't show up, he only showed up a couple of times in the previous season, because they can't afford Billy D. Williams, like, for repeat. But last season you get to see Princess Leia. You get uh a little, not a little cameo, but like a Palpatine shows up here, and of course you get like Grand Admiral Thrawn. And let me tell you, now I respect the fact that he's obviously a strategic a warrior in his own right, but better than any other admiral or commander in the Empire, say from like Vader or Palpatine, or even Tarkin. But the way he talks and strategize, it sounds like he read the script and say, "Oh well, they're doing this, so like let them go." I already know what they're planning to do. I was like, what did you read the freaking script? Like, like you just aligned too perfectly, like he knew exactly. It's like, I know, I watched the Lord Master video on YouTube about Thrawn and his rise to power. And of course, people, like, you get to see in certain images here, or certain people look, because what separates him from other like commanders in the Empire, he's not out for glory. He wants results. And it's like, you see, like, one commander like completely ignore his orders because, like, I'm out for the glory myself. I'm not gonna let him rob that from me, and completely gets his butt killed. It's shows him, like, like, if all the Empire's forces had commanders exactly like this, they probably wouldn't have a snowball's chance, period. But everybody has, like, in the Empire, people go into this doggone army, either they're bullies or sadists, or just wants to, like, vie for power, that kind of thing. But I think, like, and then you get to see the guy who usually, the same character who does the narration for Clone Wars, like doing like a playback on what's going on previously kind of situation. He was one of the commanders in Clone Wars. I forgot his name, but you see him make a return in this, and it's like, I looked him up, and of course, spoiler alert, he died, when the first Death Star was destroyed, so he died along with Tarkin. But I'm thinking to myself, I mean, why would you continue to work with, like, I don't understand. He's loyal to, like, he was very loyal to, like, the Republic. But when I grew into the Empire, did you buy into Palpatine's bullcrap? Especially how often you worked with these Jedi, and like, in like the gruesome way, y'all just, the clone troopers just eradicated a majority of them. I mean, it's like, you should be like, Senator Bail Organa, which makes quite a few appearances throughout this series. I mean, it's like, you see, like, okay, this ain't right kind of thing, but nah, he's like, I'm a commander, like, I believe in this and the other, so I'm sticking with this, and despite what it turned into. And it's like, he seems like he's not like a monster, but it's like, dude, you think for yourself, like, what they're doing is completely atrocity. They're pretty much freaking Nazis. That's how they were always painted to be, even with like their get up, as well as like this lady with this Mo Howard hairstyle. If you don't know who Mo Howard is, look up the Three Stooges. You'll know what I'm talking about. But this woman straight up looked like a freaking, like, like a Nazi. It's the way she like her hair and just the way she carried herself. Um. Oh, speaking of like female Imperial commanders, there was one moment. I forgot. I'm pretty sure it was in the third season. It was this probably legit was probably. I don't get many laughs out of this entire series because the Clone Wars. There's been moments where I legit laugh at certain things. This is like I rarely get a laugh out of this when they're trying to do something comedic because it comes off as kind of childish, even by child standards. And there was this one moment where this it was like a black woman who's one's commanding this imperial fleet, and and she got these two guys at the controls, and something going on with the rebels, and like one of the guys at controls was relaying like they did this and the other, ma'am. And then she just goes like, well, go hit them, slam him back in the neck. It was like, well, go get them. It was like flat. Just back in. It was done like that was like a perfectly timed hit. That was so doggone funny. That like I busted up. That is the probably the biggest laugh I got out of this entire series, and oh my god, I had to rewind that because that was fucking funny. But yeah, they been like recruiting other people like Callus, who was like he was like the Zuko of this series, the first two seasons, until like little by little he get a change of heart after like hang with Zeb and like seeing things through their eyes. He became like their inside man eventually. But with Thrawn, which I really like this episode because like Thrawn is already suspecting there's like a spy amongst them, and he already like I like to think he already suspected Callus, but he didn't have like 100% certainty on it. So he goes through these machinations and like, okay, we'll do this and that, the other, and like you see Callus doing some very slick stuff, and like I really like the fact that he managed to pin it on this guy by like, oh, she's like, the way she's doing things seems kind of suspicious, and of course, like I mentioned before, everybody seems like they're always out for themselves or trying to vibe for the favor of the of the Emperor. Same way with like the turncoat Mandalorians who decide to work with the Empire. We'll get to those guys in a second. But like Callus just like slipped this little key, look like a pen, but it's like a key to unlock doors and stuff like that. And he slips it because it holds a signature. Whoever opens a particular door or access certain information, it's recorded, so know who's the last person who checked it out. So he swapped it out and then swapped it back after he like, you're the one, you're the traitor, and it's like holy crap. And then of course like Thrawn in the end like he's Callus is a traitor, but he eventually like set things up so he can like bust him pretty much. But that whole ordeal is like really really good, and I need to see if we see I like to think Callus was in Rogue One, but I could be wrong. Because I don't think he was in the original trilogy, but I would like to look it up and see, because he might show up at certain points and I blink and miss it kind of situation. But yeah, as far as like the Mandalorians, Sabine has this little arc because, before I get into that, it kind of feeds into this other thing where, they dealing with Maul, who's still after all these years, his primary first and foremost goal, and he has a decent arc. Overall, Maul is probably like one of the handful of characters that gets like one of the best arcs, aside from certain Anakin and Luke and Ahsoka, you know, I think Maul definitely had like an impressive arc throughout like the Phantom Menace and Clone Wars and Rebels, and it's like because he still wants his revenge against uh, Obi-Wan even after all these years. That's his like main focus. His one track mind is like, I lost everything. In his mind, he lost everything. His favor with the Emperor, uh, his chance to, you know, be in this new order, or and all this stuff, all these things that he strive for, all that was lost as soon as he was cut down by Obi-Wan. And so like his entire hatred is focused on this guy. So after the events of last season, Maul, who sees like Ezra as his apprentice, he has this conversation with him, stating that like, because of course he's trying to like feed into Ezra's anger and hatred and his quest for vengeance against like the Empire. He, subtly mentions about like losing, his brother and like his entire race on Dathomir, even though of course the game didn't come out yet, but like you see like in Jedi Fallen Order, there's so far a Night Sister still around, so like there's probably at least a few Dathomirians still around here and there, because she's one. I'm curious to know because I'm pretty sure they're making a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, I'm pretty sure, and like I'm curious to know where her path is going. Is her and I forgot her name, but is she and Cal Kestis is gonna have like a thing, and what have you, because they seem to be like there's something there. I'm curious to know how that gonna turn out, but there's should be at least a few people from Dathomir still hanging around here and there. But since Maul hold the ghost, some of the ghost crew hostage, while Kanan and Ezra go to this Bendu thing, one of their original rebel base sites, where it's like very force sensitive, and this big turtle-like thing that's like in this crater that's surrounded by little giant ant hills, but it's the ants is like fat spiders, which I could not deal with. Can't even look at those things. I don't like fucking spiders. And he was teaching like Bendu was sitting there teaching Kanan how to use the Force to see, and it's kind of like a blind person using his other senses to see. But the Bendu, this turtle thing is like like neutral. He doesn't lean one side or the other, and it's like all there is. And there's one scene like towards the end of the season where like Kanan was kind of like getting really laying into him about like his supposed neutrality, telling him like, well, like all life dies and blah blah blah. Like, and Kanan, and was probably like the one of the few moments that I really like Kanan in this, and he had a great line where it's like, yeah, people die, sure, but there's a difference for happenstance that causes the death of somebody that is outside of people's control, and it's another thing when there's like a huge evil power that bombards and attacks and attacks and attacks, causing catastrophic death on like a massive scale. That's not neutrality anymore. That's just evil run amok, and you sitting there on the sidelines, and that's the thing. And I think like I was about to say like that's like maybe like the Bendis would be considered like a gray Jedi, but not so much. I think it's like a opposite of a great Jedi. It's like a just neutral Switzerland kind of mentality. I'm not getting involved. Period. While typical great Jedi's acknowledge that there's the both side of the force. There's balance, and I'm flexible, and if I'm needed, I'll be there kind of situation, and I'm not gonna be staunch in my beliefs like the Jedi and like avoiding attachments and blah 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 blah. And I'm not gonna go into the dark side in like using my power for like to uh abusing my power for the for the sake of others kind of situation. Is like I'm it's like Spider-Man kind of situation. Like I have a great power, I want to use responsible, and if I'm needed, I'm gonna be there and not sit on the sidelines, that kind of thing. And it was so the Bendu gets all like really into his feelings, thinking like, oh, who are you to talk this way to the Bendu? Dude, F you. Of course he comes in like a Deus Ex Machina when their base is being like overrun by the Empire, and like uses like all this like this big old cloud and thunderstorms and high winds and all this other stuff to really like cripple like Thrawn's forces a bit. But he held on to the Sith holocron. They get it back to hand to Maul in order to along with the Jedi holocron in order to use Ezra to use them both to seek the knowledge, because putting these together gives you any kind of knowledge you want, but it comes at a price. But Kanan comes in time before it consumes like Ezra, but they got a little bit of what they sought, which happens to be the same thing. But the thing is, their target for the information, what Ezra wanted and what Maul wanted was switched towards each other. So later on, Maul comes and finds Ezra, and of course, Kanan has to trust Ezra to handle his thing. They go to Dathomir to use the spell to look in each other's like minds to seek the information that they really wanted. And turns out like we gotta go to what they both wanted. Is on this planet with twin suns, which turns out to be Tatooine. And of course, Ezra finds the dark saber that belongs to Maul after he defeated like that, a Mandalorian terrorist. Hit it on Dathomir. Sabine ends up taking it. That leads into another arc with her. But Ezra eventually goes to Tatooine, which I'm shocked that it took, because with the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, we spent a lot of time on Tatooine. Here and in the Clone Wars, we so rarely see Tatooine. And as soon as they're there, you get to see Obi-Wan and the Tuskens, of course, and like, Ezra's, pleading with Obi-Wan, you gotta come with us and join like the rebellions. Obi-Wan's like, I got my own mission. You guys got what you need for the rebellion. You don't need me. And like, of course, Maul shows up. Obi-Wan sends. Kudos to the voice actor, because if it was done today, they would have gotten Ewan McGregor. But you gotta have the Alfred Guinness, vocal copy of at this point in the game. He sends Ezra off with Chopper, and finally does his final confrontation with Maul. It's like, in my mind, I'm thinking like Obi-Wan knows he has to handle this. This is his responsibility, an old wound that needs to be mended, pretty much. And only he can finally close a book on this old enemy. This is the same guy who killed his master, the same guy who's like, killed quite a few Jedi and civilians just to seek him out. It was a long, just like the Joker to his Batman situation. And it's like if I'm in Obi-Wan's head, I'm thinking like, it's been a long time, Maul. See, you still pretty angry. And it's like, for a long time, like, I was pretty angry with you and all the things you've done. But given how things turned out, neither one of us, went out in the end. And it's like I expected like a bit of like dialogue, just like a brief 2-minute reminiscing of like, like what you went up to kind of situation. What the hell happened kind of situation. But Maul really, got into, touched the nerve with Obi-Wan. It's like, what are you doing here? It's like, you hiding away. No, but you're here for a purpose. Are you protecting something or someone? And so, he does this like, like this, classic battle stance. Obi-Wan does his classic battle stance. And the final fight between, I've seen it before, but it's like one of the best scenes in Rebels. It's one of the, and all like the good scenes from Rebels is usually from season 3 and 4. The first 2 seasons, like, definitely not first season. It's like, man, it's just like, I do not sing his praises at all. But this scene is just like finally like a closing book on Maul, and I like his final line, because he's like, he knew, it's like with the, I'm assuming with the Force, like he knew whoever Obi-Wan is protecting. It's like, like, is he the, like he said something like, is he the chosen one? It's like he is. Like, I like the way like Obi-Wan's like, he's like creating him. This is like a enemy, the same guy who murdered his own master, and it's like all these years that went by, he's like grown to the point where it's like, I kind of respect this guy in a certain level, and it's like, he was an evil person, but it's just like, it's like that kind of like enemy that's like who's constantly harassing you, but knows you better than almost anybody else kind of level, And it's like he cradles him. And he's letting him know, like, yeah, it's him, and like he will avenge us. And it's like, I like that line because on a certain level, despite even from the Clone Wars in the like the second or third last episode of Clone Wars, where he's talking with Ahsoka, knowing what's going to happen, it's like he felt that the genocide was coming, and it's like, he saw the Jedi, whether Sith or Jedi, those are his people, and it's like his people, his family in a way, and they all, for the most part, have been like completely decimated by his former master, in like such a even beyond what he thought, because he wasn't clued in on that plan, and I don't think he probably would have went along with that, depending on the way it's written. I don't think at this point in the game, I don't think Maul will probably would have went along with that plan, because he'd rather rule everyone and kill any enemy that fought against him. But so far as like, just complete genocide, I think that's like a limit. He probably wouldn't go that. That's like something that he wouldn't have gone that far with. So the fact that like, you know, this is the true one that will avenge us. It's like, and he dies at least somewhat happy to know that this special person is gonna like, fix everything. And you see like a final shot of, and you hear that Hans Zimmer music, and because he's pretty roughly around the same age as what we saw with Princess Leia in the previous season, where they're like at least shy of a couple of years, 2 or 3 years away from what transpires in A New Hope. And he's looking on from afar, and you hear like Aunt Beru screaming like, Luke, Luke, and you see like a silhouette of Luke running in you don't see him, it's like a silhouette, and you see like a boy just running. Obviously he's not a boy, he's like, still probably in his teens. I argue maybe probably will be like 17, 18 at this point in the game, and by the time New Hope runs around, he should be like 21. I'm like give or take a year or so, but he was pretty young at that time. People say like people throw around teenager because like in the not Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, something like that. Lando mentions how like we were just kids, and it's like during the events of Solo, you were a kid, maybe, but you was like a full grown. You and Han was a full grown men in this point in time in New Hope and Empire. Luke is like 21 tops. And of course he's twins to Leia, so she's like 21 tops. So so that book's end Maul, and it's like he had an impressive arc, and I like this, and I like seeing like Obi-Wan, because you don't see him again until of course this is like Rebels set after the events of whatever the Obi-Wan series is gonna do, but we won't see Obi-Wan again until New Hope. So Sabine gets the Darksaber. She she gets trained by Kanan and Ezra, and of course she's still holding on, like all these regrets on what her family had went through. She at first went to the Imperial Academy and what have you, but which because of her engineering skills, she in a way helped create this machine that turns against Mandalorian armor to fry them from the inside out, pretty much like turn them to dust. And because she mentions in another scene with Bo-Katan, who makes a return, that like I was young, I was arrogant, and all this other stuff, and it's like we've all been like young and have some arrogance about them, but it's like we still managed to not to create like a weapon of mass destruction unless we're full blown just egomaniacs. But she goes because she doesn't want the responsibility of leading the Mandalorians, because it's got these different houses like Game of Thrones, and she's from the House of Ren, even though it's like Kylo Ren, but different Ren altogether. And her mother, uh, she has a mother who's like leads the House of Ren, and of course she, feel like uh, her family looks down on her and turns their back on her because they took the side of the Empire, kind of thing, and you know she's not looked on favorably. But they know they need help, some more manpower for the Rebel Alliance, and they seek after the Mandalorians, who by and large either were decimated or they were decided to go with the Empire just for the sake of survival or just fear. And there's one, because it's like one Mandalorian leader who's very power hungry. Apparently, he's just like, like I am the Empire, and I will be sitting beside my Emperor and all this other stuff. And he's like, dude, you are abandoning everything the Mandalorians stand for. And so, one of his little subordinates mentions like, what's stopping them? Because he's trying to capture Sabine in order to finish this machine to make it, be able to work against large armies of Mandalorians if need be, rather than just a fraction from what it's working at capacity it is working at right now. And one of the subordinates points out, rightly so, is like, hey, what's stopping them once they get what they want and making this at full capacity to take out large numbers of us? What's them stopping them from turning against us at a drop of a hat? And he, this guy doesn't really, consider that. It's like, he's pretty much like, once we make ourselves, unquestionably loyal and like undoubtedly useful, they wouldn't try that. Like, have you been watching the same thing everybody else is watching as far as like what the Empire is willing to do against people, even ones of their own, for just failing them? They had a Grand Inquisitor cut off two guys' heads after they've just been undoubtedly loyal. Yeah, sure, they outlived their usefulness. I guess you can look at it that way, but it's like at one slip up, one drawback, they wouldn't hesitate to kill you just to teach the others to fall in line and make sure there's no screw ups. I do not understand. He's just like that egotistical. He just doesn't see that. Of course, Sabine and Bo-Katan ends up destroying that machine, so that would never be used against a Mandalorian. And so she gives Sabine Bo-Katan the Darksaber because she sees her as like the rightful leader. And of course, eventually you'll see like Moff Gideon get the Darksaber and the events of Mandalorian happen the way they happen, blah, blah, blah. But as another thing, they really make Bo-Katan get like some kind of crow's feet in her head just to show like, oh, she's like a little older now. But you see her live action in Mandalorian season 2, it's like she still looks pretty goddamn young. It's like there's no, worn, torn kind of facial things going on with her skin. She looks pretty dang young. But yeah, and Sabine's back with her family, and they're fighting against, the Empire now with more people for the Rebel Alliance, because bits and pieces of them just recruiting people, and you get to see Wedge in here. Like Wedge gets recruited here, so it's nice to see Wedge. Because I always thought like Wedge and Luke was like best friends from Tatooine, and he joined us a little bit after, before, a little bit before Luke left Tatooine with Obi-Wan. Could be misremembering. But yeah, what else happened here. Yeah. Oh, and the Bendu, tells Thrawn before he disappears, like, his fate that he saw, like, somehow like being wrapped in a golden embrace, which once I review the final season, you'll know exactly what happened. Of course, if you've seen Rebels, you know exactly what happened, and it happens the way he said. But I'm pretty sure he said golden embrace, and I don't see gold anywhere. But whatever. I could misremember that part too. But he gets embraced. Um, oh, I got a comment on like, after the events of the last season and beginning of this season, you know, a handful of months went by, and Ezra, like, had like a bit of a growth spurt, and he cut off all his hair, and it's like, he's, showing some maturity now because he cut off his hair, and of course he gets, for a little while he gets like not tempted by the dark side, but using the Sith holocron to like learn new powers because he's sad because like Kanan's, he's, not on missions with him anymore. He's not talking with him, and it's like, bitch, he got fucking blinded. Give him some time to cope. It's not gonna be, you know, done and got over with within like a handful of months. It's gonna take as long time as he's gonna take it, and it's like, I just really don't care for Ezra, and he's supposed to be like the main guy in the series that's supposed to be likable. It's like not liking Ryu or not liking Liu Kang, and they're like the headliners of the entire franchise, and it's like, it's just weird. And it's like, the main guy has to be likable, and it's like, I do not care for this punk kid. He's not like a punk, but it's like, and people throw around the word of whining a lot for the Skywalkers, but it's like, you can understand their frustration. This kid, he's such a kid, and it's like, I don't know, it's just the dialogue. It's just, or it's just certain choices he makes. It seems like he doesn't get better until like the tail end of the entire series, and it's like, God, I do not care for this kid. But yeah, that's season 3. I'll be back in a few minutes, so I can go over the final season, season 4, and eventually we'll, later on in the week I will go over Rogue One, and then lead into The New Hope. So I will see you guys a little bit. Leave a comment below. Let me know what y'all thought of Rebels season 3. And don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.